Here is a Galaxy 12-inch oscillating table fan. I forget what the model number is off the top of my dome, but I will type it into the video box that nobody reads. This is an earlier model. This still has the metal handle as part of the guard, and unlike a lot of newer fans, there's actually enough space here to put your fingers through it. This also still has 4, 6, 7 of the probably original grill clips still intact, which is a very high number at this point in time. So this is about as run-of-the-mill as it gets when it comes to vintage fans, but I particularly like these. I think they're very good quality, and this is one of those things that I pick it up pretty much any time I see it if the price is reasonable. This was $8. I'll pay up to about 10 or 15 on one of these if it's in really good shape, but that's about it. These do still exist around here. I picked this up locally, and this spurred a couple conversations about the availability of different things throughout the country. There are parts of the country where these don't exist anymore, similar to how around here box fans don't exist. I can go years without seeing a vintage box fan in a thrift store. Literally years. But these, usually once or twice a year, one of these will surface somewhere. This one is in pretty good condition. It does unfortunately have paint splatter on the blades. I don't know what it is with these fans and the paint splatter, but almost every single one I own has paint splatter on it, which is infuriating because it's very difficult to get it off of this type of blade without damaging it. There's not a lot of stuff you can use to clean or scrape these blades that doesn't damage the finish, because it's a very high gloss translucent finish. It otherwise seems to be in pretty good shape. I think it's definitely been cleaned a handful of times, because there is a large amount of dust inside the motor, which is simply not consistent with what we're seeing on the outside. Kind of rare that you come across fans that have been cleaned, but it does happen on occasion. Even the back vents here are also pretty caked up with dust. So I think this has got some hours on it. You would never know from the outside. There's some dust, surface dust on here, but it's actually in pretty exceptional condition. No marks or anything anywhere that I can see. The only problem is the paint splatter on the blades. Yeah, it's definitely yellowed. These were pretty much stark white when they were new, but that's to be expected for pretty much anything plastic that's more than 5 years old. And these are getting to be, this is probably a early 80s model, early to mid 80s I guess. So this is getting to be, it went to the 90s, the 2000s, the 2010s, I mean, it's getting to be, these are, 40, 45 years old, some of them now. And these are really proving to stand the test of time. Even the capacitors, for the most part, are generally still good. I don't come across many of these with bad capacitors. In fact, I think it's only one or two so far that I've found with a bad capacitor. And I also don't ever see any with warped blades. The blades in this one are still perfect, as most of them are. Has the older style plug, and the prongs are all screwed up for some reason, and very thin cord. Let's take a look at the information tag before we start it up. The information tag is gone, so there's nothing to see. This number, I believe, is a date code. It says, looks like 2808 and then 3. And I'm pretty sure that people have told me numerous times how to decode that, and I just don't remember. It does have two keyhole slots for mounting it on the wall, but I don't know if I'd trust that or not. It's a lot of weight on a very small, relatively thin piece of plastic. It also wouldn't be very practical because it only tilts up that much, so I don't really know why you would mount this on the wall. Yeah, I should see if it's sturdy, because if it does seem like it's sturdy, it might be a benefit to store these on a wall somehow, perhaps. That's never come to mind before. Well, let's plug this up and make sure the buttons seem to be working. Let's plug this up and see what we get. We've got 120.7 volts right now. We'll go over to the amps. These typically hover around 0.3 amps, 0.3 something amps on high. Really quite efficient. Huh. This is the saddest one I've ever seen. Now, granted, this was in the garage, which is only about 55 degrees. It's only about 61 in here, so the bearings are a little bit cold, but I think that we do have some dry bearings here. Let's see. Does it stop pretty fast? Oh yeah, the bearings are in substantial need of lubrication. But let's keep in mind it's still running, and it has probably never been oiled after 4 decades of reliable service. Yeah, the blade's a little bit out of balance, but nothing too crazy. It's drawing 0.35 amps, which is right around what I would expect, so that sounds fine. 42 the watts, power factor of 1, right on the nose. So the capacitor is still perfectly good. If the capacitor was drifted, we would see the power factor start to go down, and of course the performance would also go down with it. So, as is typical, moves a ton of air, very quiet, all the way across the room, strong breeze. Whipping out the air. That's strong. These really were just excellent fans. And the fact that there's so many of them around still speaks volumes to the quality. So I always say that one of the best ways to tell if something was good equipment or not is to look at how many of them are still around. Because stuff that's junk doesn't last, and stuff that's excellent stays around. The oscillation didn't seem like it wanted to work too good before. It seems perfectly fine now, so that's kind of weird. It probably just needs oil. Yeah, see how the oscillation's not smooth? Any of the movement points just need to be lubricated. Yeah, it's very stiff. Yeah, it's almost stalling out from the resistance of the oscillation. So we can fix that, that's easy. If it wasn't for all that bearing rattle, this would be almost silent on low. And it's still pushing plenty of air too. Now Nice breeze. That might just need new thrust washers. Yeah, that's what that is. That's worn out thrust washers. We should be able to make this run like new again. But it's not happy the way it is, so we're gonna cut it off. No point in running it like that. Yeah, those bearings are dry. You know, before I turned this on, I was just thinking that I've really never seen one of these actually lock up before. And this one is still a decent ways off from that, but I guess some of these are getting old enough now that we're going to start to see some of them start to develop dry bearings. Hey, 40 years is a pretty good long run for what at the time was a pretty basic economy, run-of-the-mill, I don't want to say piece of junk, but it was not a top-of-the-line product by any means.